Hello there and welcome to the Libertarian Listener with me, Chris Wilkinson. On today's show I've been talking to Mickey Alexander, who's a libertarian activist, on the Welsh lockdown, free school meals and the impending 2020 US presidential election, which is now only 1 week away. Right, so the first topic for today is on the Welsh lockdown. Is it right that items such as books and children's clothes should be banned, yet items such as alcohol and tobacco are not? So what are your thoughts on the non-essential items ban?
Well, my opinion on the essential ban is that this ban is absolutely ridiculous, and because there is no clear criteria on what is non-essential item. It's a very subjective thing. For example, if we look up at the article, one of the non-essential items are being listed, such as books. But the question is, what kind of books? Is it novels? Is it textbooks? Is it the dictionaries? So if these objects are not essential, then how students are gonna buy for their studies that they have at their home through Zoom? And most importantly, that they put on a non-essential items list is the baby clothes. And the reason why it's absolutely ridiculous and very dangerous to choose this type of items is because we're in the middle of an autumn and the winter is coming. So parents will not be able to buy themselves clothes for their children to make sure that they're gonna stay warm and not get cold. If parents will not be able to buy this sort of clothes as fast as possible, because sure, they can buy it online, but it will take much longer because because the deliveries during the lockdown are taking a little bit longer or twice as longer, then you can go to the store and buy it very quickly, just within 2 hours or 1 hour. And what other essential items are being banned? The useful items such as calculators, markers, pencils. This is also another shoot in the foot, and it's going to be difficult for children, for example, to study, because you might need a textbook or a notebook to write your notes down. You need pencils because you might even lost a pencil, or your pencil is broken and you can write down. Or you might need to buy yourself a calculator if you need one for the maths lectures and all that stuff. And the way how the government tweeted about the essential items, as I quote from the article, what government tweeter says, supermarkets can be selling items you can find in other essential shops. Okay, but which shops are essential? Because they haven't, such as stationery and greetings cards. Yeah, because you need a greetings card to send your dying or lonely grandmother. Because thank you very much, government. Another, the purpose of selling essential items is only during fire break and discourage spending more time than necessary in shops and be fair to retailers who have closed. And it continued, this is not for the sake of being difficult. Well, it is difficult already. We need everything we can to minimize the time we spend outside of homes. First of all, you cannot all the time sit at home. If you're gonna sit at home, for example, drinking or being all the time at home, it's not good health for you. First of all, for physical health, because you might be obese if you don't have enough move. You might maybe run out of breath, because sure, you can open your window, but that's not enough. Sometimes you have to go with a dog, so it requires to go outside. So, and this is what they say: this will help save lives and protect the NHS. Yeah, protect the NHS, the scam of the earth. Because everybody knows. Even when I was at one of the anti-lockdown protests, there were like many professors and whistleblowers that they said that they're doing almost absolutely nothing in those hospitals. This is why you see many like TikTok videos of them doing some dancing and like special comedy 50-second skits or playing cards, and that has been mentioned many times, but people did not listen whatsoever.
There's a quote from the Liverpool Echo here which says, Tier 4 local lockdowns being considered by the government if current rules don't work. Officials are reportedly considering a plan B if current restrictions have not made a difference by mid-November. On Saturday, the Echo reported that the coronavirus cases had started to fall in Liverpool 10 days after the Liverpool City region went into Tier 3 on October the 14th. So therefore it's completely pointless. But considering what the government has already done over the past 7 months, do you think that Tier 4 is going to become a reality? Because we've already got used to wearing masks and social distancing and the 10 p.m. curfew and things like that.
Well, to be honest, here's a little of a nihilistic point I have to make. There's a huge possibility that they might even pass this a tier 4 lockdown because they believe it's for the common good, which is a very dangerous collectivist idea. Even the bad guy from World War II, even in his writing, says the common good before the individual good, which can create disaster. This type of idea were used by many authoritarian and totalitarian systems such as communism, national socialism, fascism, socialism. And the worst part is that some people are very attracted to that. So we have to be careful and our mind sharp. And here's the thing about the lockdown. I don't think there should be a lockdown because sure, people are affected by it, by COVID, but also by the lockdown. If I read out for you the Metro article that was published in the paper titled "Death Toll Surah, Not from COVID," where the writer mentions that more people are dying from the very famous diseases than from COVID. Deaths from those very famous diseases such as cancer has skyrocketed, as it says. Among the biggest killers are diabetes, up to 86%, Parkinson's, 79%, prostate cancer, 53%, breast cancer, 47%, and bowel cancer, 46%. And we also have deaths among women with dementia have jumped for about 75%. And that was mentioned by Professor Carol Sikora, who is a director of a cancer care provider, Rutherford Health. He even said COVID-19 kills, but so the lockdown.
Yeah.
So this is like the healthy part about this. And now let me go to the economical part, because by closing down or limiting the businesses to the point that people are not able to buy goods that they need or want for their families or for themselves, we are questioning the idea of a free market. It stops the production, that stops one of the most important cycles of the economy, that is trade selling and spending. Lockdown restrictions make production and trade very difficult and awkward due to social distancing and wearing masks. The high difficulty buying goods and services without breaking some of these restrictions, because lots of them are absolutely ridiculous. And it makes it impossible for the consumers and business owners to spend and earn money. And what I meant by this is that people will not be able to buy things that they need or want, and business owners will not be able to pay their employees and taxes and bills. So the whole cycle is disrupted in an artificial way. If there's the stop and go tactic will be repeated all the time, people will lose their jobs, shops, and people will end up homeless and unable to find jobs, which leads to high inflation or worse, and collapse of the whole economy.
Which is already kind of happening, really, because we've had a massive collapse in GDP and a hell of a lot of people have become jobless. They're predicting 3 million people unemployed by Christmas, which is only now 2 months away. Would a more localist approach to handling the pandemic be more effective?
I mean, we must invest in stronger immune systems so our body can create antibodies that can prevent us from getting the symptoms. It also helps create the T cells responses against the virus, as it was explained by Dr. Sarah Jeffries in the Good Morning Britain interview. Even in this interview, it was even said by a very, very brave lady named, I think, Moran from Barnsley from PM. So she's been talking about that we must absolutely stop this lockdown, because we're going to lose all the jobs, and the younger generation will be in massive debt and unable to find jobs, such as the Generation Z, that is both economically screwed, and just like the millennials. And like you said, let the vulnerable ones stay in home. The youngsters, like between the 20s and 30s, should go to work, because they're going to have a strong immune system, and they will create a special T-cell response against the virus,
which can only then help everybody else who's more vulnerable, because if we could reach herd immunity by just infecting those who are already healthy, it won't spread then to those who are more vulnerable, and therefore we actually save more lives by doing that than we are with lockdowns.
Yeah, but it's also, in my personal theory, I think it will create a good epigenetic affection for our next generation, so our body will be immune to those diseases.
So there's a Sky News article here that says 37% of doctors think the government's 3-tier system won't stop COVID-19 spreading. More than 6,000 doctors took part in the survey, and when asked to what extent the new tiering system in their local areas would contain coronavirus, 37% said they believe it will have no impact or would be ineffective. Less than half of those surveyed, 46%, think this approach could work to a slight extent, and just under 6% said it will work to a significant extent. So that's pretty much a vote of no confidence in lockdowns there. We're all being put under stricter measures with every passing week that goes by, yet the number of cases is still going up. So doesn't that just prove that the rules and restrictions imposed by central government and local authorities simply don't work? And it's now time to consider alternatives such as herd immunity, which is, after all, scientific fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, we must invest in the strong immune system. Even those who are vulnerable might get the virus if they don't isolate, such as the older people, those who have who are obese. Even there's an article about this, that obese people are more likely to die from COVID. And if we keep the lockdown all the time and let the government act like an overprotective mother who does not want you to progress and face challenges that the world is putting in front of you, then we're never going to progress. We're always going to stay in one spot, and lots of people will die.
Okay, so the next topic is on free school meals. And the first question is, as Milton Friedman said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And there is an argument to suggest that the state ought to reduce the tax burden on poorer families so that they can afford to feed themselves, instead of intervening in the market with some magical benefit or handout to do something that we're better off doing ourselves. So was the government right to vote against free school meals for children during the half-term holidays?
Let's start from this. I absolutely sympathize with all the parents who struggle to feed their children, because some people are right now unable to find jobs because of the lockdown. However, I don't think that the free meals will sort this situation in the long term, because the reality is nothing is free. People were talking about everything is free, like the school is free, like the food is free. But the question is, who is paying it? Because it will be better to create an economical climate for people to earn more, be better educated, and reduce taxes, so people will be able to afford meals for their families.
I mean, surely it's a bit nasty as well, because given that it is temporary, the moment they take it away, there's going to be clamours from parents all over the country saying, well, actually, you know, we're used to this now, it's helped us out, and we want to keep it. So therefore, it's going to be even harder to get rid of.
I think that's because people are actually got used to getting a welfare check, or getting used to be dependable on the government. This is how people, kind of a mindset and moral values do people actually were raised on for a very long time. Sometimes it's because of the mentality that they have, maybe because of the group thinking that they were raised on. I think the free meals is possible to get when it's done voluntarily, when local businesses, local shop owners, market owners can actually, from their will, give those goods and food to their local neighbors and friends and families.
It's a move towards an increasing level of support for everybody. But the point is that when everybody's receiving government support, who's supporting the government? Because it's our tax money that's going into obviously paying for our own benefits.
So this is more of like a master morality versus slave morality. And the reason why it's hard for them to stop being dependable on the government is because they've never been taught of how to be independent themselves. And now it's much harder because of the lockdown. It's hard for a young person to get a job. It's hard to get an education now.
So is there a possibility, as Ben Bradley MP recognised, that cash in hand may be misused on things other than feeding children, and that a targeted system of food vouchers would be a more sensible alternative and a better use of taxpayers' money if they are going to go down that route?
Well, that's a very good question. I think I highly recommend lowering up the taxes so people will not lose their properties and homes if they're going to get some kind of a free food. I think the prices of the food must drop a little bit so that those who cannot afford it can afford it. And if they still cannot afford it, then there must be offered some special discount vouchers I can get. For example, when I started at the ACM at my university, there were like many vouchers on the table to like any bar, any shop you like to buy some sort of a good. Now I had this like very book, like a small book of special vouchers for the Witherspoon, because the university that I used to go, it's in the same building as the Witherspoon bar. Yeah. No, but I was not getting wasted all the time. So no, I was not this type of student. But what actually helped me is that it helped me to save a lot of money on this. For example, originally pizza cost like around £10. I was paying for about like £5 or £4 for one pizza. So the vouchers are very useful, a good technique to save money and making sure that those who are in absolute need can afford it. And thanks to that, the businesses can still make money and give some kind of a payment, for their employees, and making sure that they're going to be able to pay their taxes.
Yeah, of course, obviously lowering the taxes on business as well. We've seen a massive number of businesses come out in support of people who are suffering food poverty and things like that. It seems as though the government is completely blind to the purpose of charity. It doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that people are generous and that businesses can be generous as well. It wants to do everything by itself, but in doing so, it screws up.
That is one of the signs of the authoritarian government, because it's like saying, listen, we are the government. We know what's best for you and what's best for all of us. So and we all this together. This is like the first sign of fascism a little bit, because this is what kind of a philosophy fascism was based on, from a Giovanni Gentile, when he said that we are all family and we are together. And the state wants to control everything, because I think the government just wants to make sure that we're going to stay in the same spot and be just stay line, just straight up line, no progression. It's getting be up or down, up and down, but no progress whatsoever.
So the Guardian has said Labour was defeated by the government in a vote on the policy last week, prompting businesses and councils, some of them Tory-led, to step forward to offer to feed children in the October half-term break. But the government has so far dug in to defend its position. In an apparent softening of tone after a Number 10 spokesman last week refused to praise councils and firms offering help, the Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis said Rashford deserved huge credit for his work on the issue, although he stood by Downing Street's line. So since The Guardian is reporting that the Labour Party is pledging to force a vote in the House of Commons if the government doesn't U-turn on its decision, and my God, we've had a load of U-turns in recent weeks, do you think that this is going to become yet another political football, like the NHS, for example, while sidelining the real issue of food poverty?
Labour Party members and supporters want free meals to happen because it's a moral thing to do, which is it's a human thing, really. However, in each decision, there's a sacrifice to make. Many small store markets owners do share their goods from their free will and helps their locals, which is a very libertarian thing to do because it's done voluntarily, not by force from the high authority. The question is if this is another political football. The answer is yes. because there will be a fight over who has the most moral high ground in the term of decision making that might not go too well.
So the final issue that we're going to talk about today is the impending 2020 US presidential election. So considering we've now had the final debate and they've covered issues such as Donald Trump's tax returns, Hunter Biden's laptop, leftist social media bias, far right-wing groups such as Proud Boys. Do you think that American politics, and maybe politics even in this country and others, are no longer about the real issues that affect people in their everyday lives, but more about the actions of those seeking to represent them? And do you think that this is what's fueling the rise of a political class that is guided more by sectional interests and lobbyists rather than grassroots activism?
I think that the political culture war is repeating itself like we saw in Germany after the Great War, which is what like left the communist versus nationalists, and there's absolutely brutal fight between those, which is the clash between the left-wing and the right-wing politics. We also see how so many activist groups are fighting each other on some events. What worries me about this situation is that the free market of ideas is falling apart, because most of the parties and activist groups follow the collectivist approach to fix the world problem, when it's the unique individuals who fix most of the problems, but they're being silent by the mob because of they not following the moral high ground of the mob. For example, if you look such as Twitter, if you're gonna write some kind of a different opinion that is not following Twitter's bias or other people's bias, because Twitter is like the definition of how democracy does not work and how it can ruin your life. Because when you actually post something on Twitter that's a little bit controversial, you will absolutely get smeared as a white supremacist, racist, Nazi. Actually ridiculous. I mean, of course they do it because this is the internet. That's how internet works. The reality is people should not care about these people whatsoever, because people like this do not deserve any attention whatsoever.
Well, they're stupid enough to call Dave Curtin a racist, despite the fact that he himself is an ethnic minority in this country.
David Curtin is an absolute chad. I think he has my vote to be a mayor of London. I think he's going to do a much better than Sadiq Khan.
Who do you think's actually going to win next week, Trump or Biden?
Well, definitely Trump. He has a lot of support due to the riots and violent left-wing extremism, because he declared a war against Antifa. I would even vote for him because he defends civil liberties. He might not be interested in economical liberty, as my best friend Sean Finch said to me, because in my perspective, he's a cooperative alpha male who owns a big corporation, and this type of people don't like fair competition when it comes to business. So this is why he's a little bit authoritarian person. And the things I do not like about these elections and the way how they want to win election is not by helping every single individual be able to strive for greatness. When like John Kennedy said, it's not also about what the country can do for you, it's what you can do for the country. It's not the mob that leads to greatness, it's an individual. And now it's more of a fighting who's going to give the biggest welfare paycheck when they're going to win the elections, because he cares about the civil liberties, which is what I like. He defends the Constitution. But my criticism here is that he didn't get rid of the IRS, which is sad. He didn't make the money in the gold standard, which is I wish it could happen. But yeah,
it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. My name is Mickey Alexander. If you want to check my posts, check my activism, you can always check me on Facebook, Mickey Alexander, the Libertarian Activist. However, I might say some wrong things. If there's something you do disagree with me, please mention it in the comments below, so I'll make sure I will progress and fix my mistakes. Thank you.
And now we're heading over to Jason Salvesen.
Hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. The Great Reset. Right, I'm sure most people have probably heard about this by now. It is something that is being proposed by an organization called World Economic Forum. For those who haven't heard about it, I will take you through a few things today in regards to what the sorts of things they are proposing and the transformation they are wanting to create around the globe. Now, there's been a lot of talk for many years about the global elite taking over, trying to take over the world, essentially. And, I've always taken it with a pinch of salt. There's obviously are a lot of very powerful people out there that would like to have a bit more control and a bit more power. But I've always kind of thought, well, there needs to be some kind of mechanism to exert this power. We are, each country, we're individual sovereign countries, and we still have the vote. We can still democratically vote out people that are proposing policies and agendas that we don't really want to get involved with. To that end, along with the Great Reset, these people have been, going on about what they would like to do to transform the world and make all the language they try and use, like inclusivity and sustainable development and diversity and the Green New Deal and all of these sort of really fluffy sounding terms that on the surface sound wonderful, but I think if you scratch beneath the surface, you'll see it's something far more sinister. Now, as I was saying, these my thoughts have always been, well, how would they go about imposing this sort of new global agenda? And for those reasons, I've always been a little bit skeptical about the whole notion of some kind of world government. That was until the last couple of weeks where I started to hear rumors about what's going to be known as central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, as they're now known. Klaus Schwab's written 2 books about this. This has been decades in the making. There's been a huge amount written, and they're very open about it. This is not some group of men in a dark room somewhere. They're very open about what they're trying to do. They dress it up in a lot of vague language. Sounds all nice and pretty, but if you do some digging and you really look into it, these are people from top organizations, CEOs of Microsoft, BP, MasterCard, you name it. Every top organization in the world has a seat at the table here, including Prince Charles. He's come out with a video espousing this new Great Reset. It's very much, these are financial institutions, and if financial institutions are calling for a reset, it probably has something to do with finance. Well, as it happens, Kristalina Georgieva from the IMF came out and announced that she's calling for a Bretton Woods moment. So Bretton Woods is a meeting that took place just at the end of the Second World War, where America and the Allies kind of got together, and they put together the IMF as an organization, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. And the efforts to basically keep world peace. They figured more trade between countries would increase the chances of a peaceful playing field. She's come out to say that we need another moment like that, and we need a big change financially. And what it looks like is going to happen is, and it does look like it's going to happen. It's not really any ifs or buts about it. I think because of the recession we are currently staring in the face in the very near future. Countries and people just won't be able to cope, so they're basically going to try and take control of the monetary system by the use of central bank digital currencies. What this really means is, it's completely new financial central banks essentially creating the money, programming it however they see fit. And you read some of what Klaus Schwab says, and it's all going to be a green economy. So if you're a polluter and money gets created in the central bank, it's just going to be programmed not to be spent at your organization. And that's one example. Other things that they've been saying can be done is, it's a complete manipulation of the economy. So if they need people to be spending money, and there'll be no more banks. Essentially, the high street banks they will be allowed to collapse, and essentially every individual will have an account basically with the central bank, all work through digitally through an app. And as I say, the money can be programmed right at the source, so it can be programmed to be spent in one company rather than another. It can be time delayed, time sensitive, so if they want to increase the velocity of cash in the economy, they will just say, well, you have to spend your money in 2 weeks, otherwise it gets deleted. The taxes will come straight. There will be no more HMRC, essentially. The state will basically program, or when you get paid, a percentage of that comes straight to our digital wallet. So yeah, it's going to be quite wild. China's already trialing out their own central bank digital currency in a town called Shenzhen. They're handing out 10 million yen through a lottery system. So they beat everyone to the punch, and everyone's going to be clamoring to be there first, and no one's going to want to get left behind. So essentially, everyone will try and do this all at the same time. Essentially, then resetting the world economy. And if you look into the ethical practices of places like the IMF and the World Bank, this is not going to end well for us. The economy essentially will be run by policy and not by the market. They will be able to up prices here, put prices down there, negative interest rates. It's just mind-boggling, the rabbit hole you can go down with how things can be manipulated, and more than likely to our own detriment, I would imagine. These guys have never had the well-being of their customers at heart from as long back as I can remember. So I can't see how they are going to have our best interest at heart, and they really will have the power to make or break countries with this kind of power. So I think with all the other things we've had to worry about, I think this is probably one of the biggest. And the way they're going to get everyone to start using this is they're going to start handing it out for free. I think that we are heading towards UBI, Universal Basic Income. I think this will be the mode of delivery if that does start happening. And I think it's around the corner. I think by mid next year, you'll start seeing, if not sooner, you'll start seeing this starting to come out. And if they're handing it out for free, people aren't going to say, no thanks, I'm not downloading your app. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
That's all for this week on the Libertarian Listener. Next week we have a 2020 US presidential elections special, so you don't want to miss that. It's going to be me, Jason, and Ed talking about all things political. But in the meantime, you can check us out on social media. We're on Patreon, we have a Facebook page, and don't forget to check out the website, thelibertarianlistener.com. And until next week, thanks for listening.